What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. It's the night of the draft, and I am honestly pretty wiped, to say the least. I've been working most of the time. For those of you that don't know, my company was hired by an NBA team to work with them and stuff, and part of that was helping them throughout the draft. That doesn't mean that I was actively being that involved during the actual draft process and everything tonight, but got to listen in on things, which was cool. But anyway, I've had a couple hours now to kind of digest the draft and everything like that. I've recorded a couple other videos, let some thoughts sink in, scroll on Twitter and see some weird things whenever I go into the comments, but now I'm ready to give some grades out to each of these teams and just talk about each of the picks. A quick reminder to make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. But remember our rule about the comments: don't put any brain rot or just rude things in there. I'll give you an objection, and if you get multiple of them, I'm just gonna hide you, and then you don't get to interact on the channel anymore. Pretty plain and simple. Let's make the internet a better place. So shout out Tiermaker, man. Tiermaker is just a cool website at the end of the day. But I found one which I think has all the players that I could possibly be interested on here. If they don't, then that's what it is. But I've went and adjusted the tier a little bit, so I've got perfect picks. I'm yeah, that was a perfect pick for you guys. This doesn't mean that I think the player is gonna be a certain level or anything like that, right? This tier list is meant to grade the pick and what was available and things like that to them, right? So a couple different factors that we'll look at for that, but I figure we just go in draft order and kind of go from there. I was using this in my last video to kind of just keep my thoughts straight and everything. It's just the official draft order and everything, so I figured that's a good way to go through it. Let's start with Risacher here with the Hawks. The Hawks, I feel it's hard to grade this pick perfectly, right? Because at the end of the day, I think Sarr was the best player. I think Sarr was who you go with at one. Sarr didn't want to work out for them, and that's, I guess, kind of their fault if they didn't set themselves up in a way where Sarr could be there, right? I mean, what else can you really do at the end of the day? But that's what happened. But you did get Risacher. It feels like the Hawks offseason is far from over. If nothing else happened, I'd be pretty shocked, honestly. So it's just hard to say, right? It's okay, you got this guy that I think should be an immediate impact player on the team. I think he's going to be a good NBA player at the end of the day, obviously. But it's okay, who's he going to be playing around? What's the situation on the team? We just don't know. But I just think for the sole reason alone of that you weren't able to get a guy like Sarr or something like that, I'm going to give it a B, because you got a good player, and we can call it B. We're just going to call it a straight up B, right? I'm not going to have one of these for B plus, B minus. We can just talk about it instead. But it wasn't the best player I think you could have gotten. I think he's a good player, and I think he's pretty close to Sarr. But just the fact that you kind of had to settle for Risacher in a sense, that's what puts it at a B for me. All right, let's do Alex Sarr next to the Washington Wizards. I'm just going to throw that one right up with an A. I think it's awesome that he was so interested in going to this team, which, for lack of a better term, I'm very confused kind of what their idea is right now. I get they've got some new people there, and they're okay, let's just tear this thing down or whatever. I just think it's really weird that you traded a Edey who was really starting to come on, and he's the one small success story this franchise has really had in recent years, and you just kind of offed him. I know they wanted more first round picks and stuff like that, but it's well, you use first round picks to get players that end up being as good as Edey, right? That's kind of the goal. So just a little bit confused by that at the end of the day. But you got Alex Sarr. Alex Sarr should be your starting center for a long time to come. No-brainer pick there. I think he should have been the first overall pick, but obviously he was no, I want to go to Washington. That's just how it's going to be. So shout out Wizards, man. Y'all did good with that one. All right, let's talk about Reed Sheppard here at number 3. Oh, they got Dillingham right next to him. Oh, because it's alphabetical. Oh, I'm so fucking stupid. But anyway, so yeah, Reed Sheppard going 3. I think it kind of sucks that Houston couldn't find a way to trade this pick, because here's the thing, and there's kind of two parts to my analysis here. Reed Sheppard is if you had to take a player, that's probably the player that you pick for Houston, right? Because he was the fit. They just don't need another young player is the thing. They need to start winning basketball games. They need to start developing the players that they have. They just don't need another one of these guys. You combine that with the fact that just I'm just not huge on Reed Sheppard in general. I just don't think he's a third overall pick worthy guy. I just don't see his handle quite being there. I worry about his defense and everything. So he's an incredible shooter, and I have no doubt that he'll be able to do that in the NBA. I think he's great in that sense, but I do just worry about him overall. So I feel just for Houston's situation in general, I got to give it a C. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me. And I'll call it a C plus, just because yes, if you had to take a prospect and you couldn't make a trade, and I'll say too, trades hard in this one, because picks 3 through 11, 12, pretty much the same value. That's what everyone's kind of seeing him as. So they're like, okay, well, what do I actually give up to make these trades happen? But they weren't able to make a trade happen. Probably should have found a way to move the third pick or something like that. So that's kind of my analysis with this. And quick note, by the way, again, congratulations to all these guys that got drafted. I talked about it in my other video. You should go watch it, my post-draft analysis and everything like that. But I also want to say, I hope that all of these guys end up as perfect. Like, I can't stress that enough. I have nothing against any of these guys. I don't hate any of these guys. I want them to be successful. Like, as a coach, that's what I want. I want them to all be successful. So let's hope that for all of them. Stephon Castle here with the 4th pick. Well, all that like kind of nonsense that his camp was like putting out and everything this offseason, I don't want to call it like nonsense. It was strategic in what they were trying to do. They were basically saying like, hey, we want him to be a point guard and everything. He is a point guard, so draft him because we have a point guard. It was to get him to the Spurs. Like, that's what they wanted. Like, his camp is smart. The people at UConn are smart. They know what franchises can develop players and which ones can't. They know that like, hey, if you throw him on the Spurs, he has a much better chance of having a successful NBA career and everything. And they know they needed a point guard. So like, look, we have one. Nobody believed that or whatever. They're like, that's not the position you play. It's totally fine. Apparently super high character guy, seems lovely from everything that I've heard about him. If he was able to shoot, he'd probably be the #1 player in this class, and it probably wouldn't even be close because he can do just about everything else. I think he's going to be a great San Antonio Spur, bring them a lot of defense right away. I think it makes a ton of sense for them, honestly. So I'd say, given like the situation that they had, I'd say Stephon Castle was honestly a perfect pick for them in that case. I don't know who else you would have picked there. I think that was a perfect pick for them. And how fitting that right after we did a perfect pick, we get to talk about what the Pistons did with the 5th pick and taking Ron Holland. So I wasn't huge on Ron Holland, at least coming into the NBA, right? We all see the skill, right? We see 6'6", can handle the ball pretty well, strong, plays pretty good defense and stuff, but like it's just not up there like basketball smarts yet. And you don't expect him to be completely up there, but I mean, it's pretty rough right now, and the jump shot's not there. The Pistons, like, what are the Pistons doing, though? Like, at what point do you want to start winning some basketball games? Like, it's so confusing to me. And you've got good young players on your team already, and you're not doing anything to set them up for success. And it's really disappointing to see. That's things that you typically see out of, like a Portland or something like that, right? Or a Washington. Like, Portland putting that team around Scoot Henderson this last year was a joke. Like, why did they think that was okay? And I'm not saying they had to have a great team or anything, just guys that made some sense. And so, I don't know. The Pistons just apparently don't care about developing their players accurately. Like, if they could have traded the pick for somebody else, like, hell, move down, take a Luke Kennard. Apparently, like, the Grizzlies wanted Donovan Clingan. Like, just move down. The Grizzlies made it very clear they wanted Donovan Clingan. You could have made a trade there to make it happen, steal like a Luke Kennard from them, and still probably get Ron Holland. It doesn't make any sense. It's a really stupid trade. That's a what the fuck for me. Like, it's honestly just like, it's not even an F. It's just what the fuck. I don't know. It's a dumb pick. Like, he could very well end up being a good NBA player. It still doesn't make it make sense right now. It doesn't make it make sense. It's not what the team needs. Next up, we have Tidjane Salaun over here. Shout out all you guys that were telling me the wrong way of how to pronounce it in the comments. So thank you. I was calling him Saloon for forever. So that's just great. But Salaun over here. One of the guys I was more interested in this class. I think he has a lot more potential than most of the people in this class. Obviously, he's able to put the ball on the floor a little bit, can shoot, crazy good athlete and everything. I say can shoot, like he showed the ability to shoot a little bit, right? He's shown that he can do a little bit of everything. Just looking at his frame, it looks like he could get really big and really bulky and still be athletic. So I think he's a really interesting prospect. Am I worried about Charlotte developing him? Yes, they don't have a great track record of that. Yes, they have new people in there, but that doesn't mean I trust them, right? That doesn't mean anything. It did feel like a little bit of a reach to go get him at 6 as well. I'm not saying it wasn't a positional need for them and everything, and maybe they just want to swing for the fences a little bit, but it seems kind of like after the momentum of going and getting like a Brandon Miller and that one working out, like maybe you wanted to get a more surefire prospect and like a Knecht or something like that. But I think for that reason, like I love the potential and everything, but I'm going to give it a C most likely. It could very well work out. I just felt like it was a reach a little bit, and I feel like you maybe could have done something a little more to help some of the young players you have on the team right now, and it might just take a little bit to get him going. Next up, we have Donovan Clingan with the 7th overall pick going to the Portland Trail Blazers. Donovan Clingan was one of my favorite players in this class. I think he's a day one starter type of guy. I think he makes your defense a ton better. I think eventually he can become a hub type player. He seems really, really smart. He can do multiple things on defense, and he can rotate really well, which is really, really cool. Should be a great impact player. He makes sense next to Scoot Henderson as a guy that can play the pick and roll with him and kind of work off of him. So I really like that. A lot of this, obviously, the success of this depends on what Portland does with the rest of their offseason. Are they moving guys like Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton and Anthony Simons? The answer is they probably should. It just doesn't make a ton of sense to have them at this point. They did a great job of picking up Denny, which I think is a great fit. So shout out Portland for once you actually are trying to build around one of your guys. That's the presumption, at least. Hopefully you can find a way to move some of these other guys. But I think for the value and everything, I think Clingan's an A, in all honesty. Like, I really, really do. I think he's going to be a starting center for years to come. I think he's going to be a really great defensive player. So shout out Portland. Next up is Rob Dillingham. There he is. There's the little fella. So this one was interesting, right? Because I didn't see a great fit for Rob Dillingham until maybe like 13, 14, like somewhere in kind of that range, maybe even like 15 Miami was kind of what I was thinking. What I don't think anybody saw coming was the Minnesota Timberwolves being like, hey, let us sneak up there and go get us some Rob Dillingham. That is a phenomenal like fit for him in that sense. I think that's probably the best place that Rob Dillingham could have ended up, in all honesty, because here's the thing, right? We know he's going to be like a little spark plug, like Lou Will type guy. That's probably like the best case scenario for what he develops into, right? Just because the defense is pretty non-existent and he's not going to grow into somebody that's going to really be able to stop NBA players. But if you're going to be a little spark plug, that's kind of what the Minnesota Timberwolves need. They need another guy to put the ball on the floor that can create some offense. Everyone else can play defense on the team. You need someone else to put the ball in the hoop. This is a great fit. You've got Mike Conley on the team to help develop him, guys that can take the attention away from him so he can go get some buckets. Minnesota Timberwolves low-key might have had like the quietest, like best night of the draft, all said and done. So I want to give the Rob Dillingham pick, like they did give up some future picks and stuff like that. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm close to an A though, so think of it like a B plus or something like that. So I think that was a really good pick. Next up, we got Zach Edey, 9 to Grizzlies. Grizzlies, y'all kind of fell on your face today, didn't you? You didn't get Nick Claxton, you didn't get Bridges, you weren't able to go up and get Clingan, even though like maybe the Pistons are just being stupid as hell, and you were like, we will give you players to make you better right now, and the Pistons are like, no, we're taking Ron Holland because we love the potential and everything. But anyway, that's the Pistons doing Piston things. But yeah, the Grizzlies weren't able to get their guy, so they were like, well, we're taking a center, we want a center, and they went and got Zach Edey. I don't think Zach Edey's a starting center in the NBA. I just don't. Obviously, I think he's a really interesting physical specimen and everything, but I don't see him developing in a way to where he's not easy to game plan for. I think he's going to have to be more of a gimmick type player where he comes up, and that really makes it seem like I'm minimizing him. That can be a really powerful thing coming off the bench or something like that. Someone that's just really unmatchable in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, a lot of his success does come from the fact that he's so much bigger than everybody else, and that another big part of it is that college guys are not that smart and they can't game plan for this stuff. In the NBA, it's not that complicated. They will be able to stop him, like most likely. Like if he's just that physically dominant, I'd just find that hard to believe. I just really, truly would. And so for that right there, I think I got to give it a D. Like I'd like to go higher, but I think that's the highest I can go. It's not an F. It's not a what the fuck. Like I understand the positional need and everything, and he does like have like NBA skill. I think he'll be in the league for a little bit. Who knows how long at the end of the day. It's hard with these big men and everything, and I hope him a long career and a successful one. But I don't know. That one kind of sucks for the Grizzlies. All right, Cody Williams, we're at the 10th pick now. We're a third of the way through almost. And so Cody Williams, interesting pick here. We knew they needed a wing. Dalton Knecht was still on the board. They didn't end up taking him. Didn't take Buzelis, two kind of developmental projects, right? And they ended up going with more of the playmaking style one, which I can't fault them for. You want to play some smart basketball? I'd say Cody Williams is probably the better of the two in that sense. He seems to have a really good feel for the game already. He's got some good like ball handling skills already being established. Hopefully will be a good help defender down the line. He's kind of got the physical makeup and the intelligence to do so. Makes a lot of sense. He hit some threes early on, or early in his like college career and stuff. Wasn't a high clip or anything, but he's going to be a project. I wish he was a little bit more athletic than he is right now, and I'd like to see a little bit more. Maybe he's still growing into his body, but it doesn't like necessarily look like it to me, at least. It just kind of maybe looks like he doesn't have a ton of explosiveness or anything, which kind of diminishes the value of some of this lengthiness that you have going on. But I don't know. I don't think it's a bad pick by any means. I'm going to put it in like a B- type tier, but I don't know. It's given who was available and everything. I don't think it was a bad pick by any means. So shout out Utah. All right, my Chicago Bulls are up next with Matas Buzelis here. Matas Buzelis. A guy I wasn't very high on coming into the draft, like in all transparency. I don't necessarily get the hype around him, and I think a lot of teams kind of understood that and kind of tended to pass on him. What do you hope out of him? Is that he becomes kind of this stretch wing that can hopefully be somewhat of a playmaker as well, that can use some of that athleticism that he has to really go create some things. Problem is we just didn't see it in the G League or anything. Like, he did not shoot well. He cannot put the ball on the floor in the half court. He's pretty rough, in all honesty. I look at his frame and I don't see somebody that's really going to get like big and strong ever. So I'm like, okay, I have to kind of hope that you turn into just like kind of a stretch four or something like that can occasionally like kind of cut to the hoop or something like that. That's kind of what I'm seeing. But given who the Bulls like had available to pick, I don't think it's like the worst thing in the world. Like, honestly, like obviously I'm not that high on Buzelis, but just given what else was available in the state that the Bulls are going into, at the very least now you've got Giddey, Buzelis, and while I don't think Buzelis is going to help Giddey like very early on or anything, you are building this like lengthy, somewhat smart basketball team. So I guess that's like at least a direction or something like that. And just given who's available, I don't hate the pick at all. And so I'm going to give it like a C plus just because I don't like the prospect, but I think like it's at least a C because it's like, okay, who else were you going to take? Next one up is Nikola Topic to the Thunder. This is one that I kind of struggle with just because like I feel like you could have gone and gotten something of a little bit more like positional need. I'm guessing the Thunder know something that we don't, and they're not too worried about finding another big man to add to the roster, or maybe like a wing with a little more size or something like that, because they just went and kind of replaced Giddey right away with Topic, and maybe Topic is better than Giddey or something like that. Maybe they're going to turn him into another Caruso one day, right? And that could just be what they're doing. Obviously, they don't need someone to come in and play right now. They have a ton of rotational players, so it made sense for them to go get a project in some sense there and wait for his development, and he would fit the drive and kick system well. Don't get me wrong, you can't run that for forever, but like it's just kind of a weird pick in that sense to me, just because again, it's just not something you necessarily needed. And I just wonder at what point are the Thunder just like picking people, right? Because they have all these picks and they're like, let's just swing for the fences every single time. But you know what? They usually end up drafting pretty well, y'all. So I don't know. I'm gonna give it like a C minus just because I don't quite get it. But the Topic is incredibly talented, supposedly. I haven't seen enough film of it to confirm that in my own head. So that's the best I can do for it for now. Devin Carter out of Providence ended up in Sacramento. Very nice fit for them at the end of the day. I think this gives them the ability to move Davion Mitchell, which lets them kind of make some other roster moves to try and make the team better, get back into the playoffs and everything like that. Hopefully they have a healthy season. Should be able to contribute right away. Nice athlete, shoots the ball pretty well, plays good on-ball defense and everything. So I think Devin Carter is a pretty clear A, in all honesty. Like, I don't think there were too many teams where he wasn't going to fit in great, but I just see the Kings as a really good fit for him. Just being a backup point guard behind De'Aaron Fox, being really solid for them off the bench and being able to contribute right away. I really like the pick for the Kings. Next up, we have Carlton Carrington, aka Bub Carrington, which is one of the better names in the NBA, I'll say. Definitely shot up the draft boards a little bit. Ended up being part of the Denny trade. He's on his way to Washington. Washington just deciding, like, we want all the young players in this draft, which worries me a little bit, just considering Washington's, like, we'll say non-clear like decision-making skills and everything in a not so good draft class. It's a little bit concerning, but Carrington is an interesting player. He showed the ability to create for himself at times, had a nice pull-up jump shot and everything. It's got kind of a weird little hitch at the end, but it ends kind of smooth. So, you know, guys change their jump shots all the time. It's not the biggest deal, but I find him interesting. He's a pretty like good basic playmaker, messes up with some of the more like complicated things for now, but he's young, so that's totally fine. He's got good size and everything. They needed more point guard play on the team, so I can't really hate it at all. And they traded and got that pick for Denny. That's kind of the only thing is I'm like, it just bothers me that they traded Denny for it, right? And that's what I can't quite get behind. So I don't hate the player necessarily, I just hate the pick more so. So like, I just would have rather kept Denny at the end of the day. I don't know, that just kind of bothers me. I'll just give it like a straight up C for that reason. Like, bad trade, solid player, so we'll give him that. All right, we got Kel'el Ware next, which they pronounced his name completely different on television, and I might be completely pronouncing it wrong. I don't remember exactly how they said it, but they said it different than how I just did. So you know what? Now I feel dumb. It's because I presume they know what they're doing outside of me. So fair enough. Screw the Miami Heat. Just always making the perfect pick. You Miami Heat fans are so lucky, and you'll be like, we haven't won a title. Shut up. Just shut up. You guys always do things correctly at the end of the day. So shout out you guys. You guys got Ware. Ware was one of my favorite players in this class. I'm just telling you guys right now, this was a perfect pick for them. Like, they needed needed some backup size and stuff like that. A guy that can, if all Ware needed was development, and he was going to be he's going to be a nice NBA player, and now he's in a place where they've got the perfect culture and the perfect development and everything else, and guys that are going to make him better. He's not going to have to do too much in his first season. He's going to have time to learn. It's a perfect pick. Shout out to Miami Heat as always. Next up, we have Jared McCain going to the Sixers. I thought this was kind of a weird one, to be honest with you guys. I don't dislike Jared McCain as a player necessarily. I think he gives a phenomenal effort. He's obviously a good shooter. Outside of that, I don't really know what you get out of him. The athleticism's not really there. He can't really create for himself. The playmaking's not there. The defense isn't very good because he's not very athletic and he's small. And so I'm like, okay, so you kind of have this point guard that can play without the basketball, but that's kind of interesting in certain circumstances, right? If you've got other ball dominant wings or something like that, but that's not really what Philly's working with in this case. And I can't imagine him playing next to Maxey, even though they tried to play him and Lowry together in the playoffs, which was kind of interesting in its own right. But so he spaces the floor. I just think a Jacoby Walter would have been a much better pick for them. And I don't know. I just feel like there were better players that could help them win a little bit more on the board right away. But I love the effort. Hopefully he's going to fit in with the culture and everything. I'm going to give that pick a D just for the time being. He has a skill set that can be useful to them, but I just think there's a lot missing and there were better picks. Dalton Knecht fell all the way to 17 to the Lakers. JJ Redick, I bet, wet himself when that happened because he was so giddy with excitement. I saw an update that they're yeah, he's already drawing up plays to do this. I love JJ Redick, man. Dude's just such a clown, but I love JJ Redick. But yeah, no, Dalton Knecht fell. The Lakers needed win now players, and there weren't many of them in this class, and they got one of them. It's an absolutely perfect pick. They needed spacing. They needed guys on the wing. He can move with them in transition as well. Should just be able to contribute a lot. Why did teams pass on him, right? I know they were talking about it during the draft too in the coverage I was watching on the TV whenever I had a chance, but I understand that front offices buy themselves some time when they go and get young players. Well, you have to let me develop my young guy, right? I went and got this guy. You can't fire me right now because I have to go develop these young guys. But just sometimes just go get the best player, right? Just go get a guy that you know is probably going to be in the NBA for a little bit. He's just a quality basketball player. I think it was an absolutely perfect fit for the Lakers. I'm sure they're thrilled about it. A guy that can just come in and help them try to contend right away. Tristan da Silva up next. Went to the Orlando Magic all the way down at 18. So a little bit lower than I would have thought, but kind of in line with where I had him on my draft board and everything. So that's kind of interesting in itself. Orlando just keeps on adding to the wings, which makes some logical sense. The Celtics did what they did this year. They have a lot of wings. You have to be able to match it if you want to be able to compete with them. That makes some sense. I get a little bit concerned that they have yet to find a playmaker on the wing, right? I don't hate that he's a spacer and stuff like that. They needed some shooting on the wing, so that makes some sense. But he can't really go create his own shot. He's not really a great athlete, and so you've kind of got a couple of those kind of going on this team now. Jonathan Isaac, really good defensive player and everything, not going to go create his own shot. Franz can kind of create, kind of not at the same time. We'll see what ends up developing, but just based on his skill set, I don't think he's going to be a big creator. Paulo does in certain circumstances, but it's more so back to the basket type stuff. The off the dribble game isn't crazy by any means. I like those guys as players a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's just okay, at some point we got to get a little bit more dynamic and stuff like that, and hopefully the guards can figure that out. Maybe Anthony Black develops into something for them. But just looking at Da Silva in that sense, I'm going to give it a C just because yeah, part of it makes sense. I feel like they maybe could have gone after somebody else or something, or maybe tried to find another backup center or something like that, someone that could go play above the rim and maybe play a little more defense or something. But no, that's where I put him for now. Raptors pick Jacoby Walter with the 19th pick. I just don't have a great opinion on this pick. Jacoby Walter's kind of an interesting project. You never really know with the Baylor guys what you're going to get out of them. There's not always a ton of discipline in their system or anything like that, and so you're never quite sure about the development of it. One thing you do see out of Jacoby Walter though, hard worker, right? Puts a lot of energy into the game, should be a good defender day one. I don't really know if it's a position of need for Toronto by any means. Maybe they're just hey, we just like him as a prospect and we want to go with that for that reason. So I can't fault him for it. I don't really know what to think of Jacoby Walter. He's not somebody I'm like extremely high on. I think he would have made more sense on like a Sixers or something for a project if you were going to go with one. But I don't really know about Toronto necessarily, because I don't know when he's going to get to necessarily have the ball to do that. You got a couple other guys on the team that you're going to give it to before him. So I think for that sense too, and I'm not putting these guys in any particular order. I'm just kind of sliding them in wherever. So like there's where I'm going to put Jacoby Walter, like C. No, we'll just call it like a C. I like to be straight up with things. Next up, we have Jalen Tyson out of California going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tyson was not somebody I'm very high on personally. Like the size and the ability to possibly be a creator, like I don't know, I don't see that creator side that I've heard a couple people talk about, because like, yeah, like he went and created a lot of his own shots. He had the ball more than like anybody else in the whole country last year. His usage rate was like out of control, honestly, but he got productivity. He was also in college for a long time and wasn't productive until he got that like opportunity, and he's not going to get that ball in Cleveland. He's just not. Like there's plenty of other guys that are going to get the ball before him, right? So it's like, okay, so you got this guy, he's never played well without the basketball. This is what he's going to do. And even when he had it, like some of the creation stuff you see, it's not NBA creation, it's college creation where guys bite on like the really simple like jabs and stuff like that, and then they hit a step back three or something like that. I just don't see him being able to create at an NBA level. I'm not very high on Tyson at all. I just wouldn't have picked him with the first round pick, in all honesty with you. I think, like, I don't want to call it like an F. It's not like a disastrous pick by any means. Like he obviously has like some potential, so I'm just gonna give it a D. All right, shout out the most predictable pick in this whole draft outside of like maybe the first pick, honestly, or like the first two. Yves Missi going to New Orleans just made sense. They needed a backup center. I think he'll be able to contribute day one. I don't think he's going to be like a starter by any means, but come in, just be a Clint Capella type guy, maybe eventually turn into a starter, something like that, maybe. Should be able to run, jump, dunk, block shots and everything. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's an A pick. You know what? Like, no, that's a perfect pick. That's a perfect pick for them. Like, that's exactly who they needed in this, given the position that they had and everything. So shout out Missi for that one. Deron Holmes is up next. The Nuggets traded up to go get him. And man, do I love this fit. I think it's awesome. He's a really smart basketball player. He's a good athlete. They needed more athletes. They added some size coming off the bench. He should be able to hit spot up three-pointers and everything. Deron Holmes, I think, was definitely one of the more sleepers of this draft. I'm not saying he's going to be stupendous by any means, but depending on the team that took him, I think it was going to be a great fit. The Nuggets got him. I think they got a steal in this one. I think he's going to be able to really contribute to them and fit into their offense and stuff. I'm going to give this one another perfect fit as well. I think that was a perfect move up in execution of that trade. Congratulations, Denver. I think you got a good one. All right, now we got AJ Johnson. Did not expect to see his name get called tonight. And like the Milwaukee Bucks are just so weird with how they do things sometimes. They're lucky they got as much talent as they do, man, because it kind of lets us just kind of overlook some of the decision-making stuff that they do as an organization, which is honestly just kind of all over the place. So I did not expect to see AJ Johnson. For those of you that don't know, played with Alex Sarr over there in Australia this year. Really, really young guy. Basically, the consensus on him is they're like, okay, I could see him becoming something, pretty good size, pretty good athlete and stuff like that. Could maybe become an NBA-style point guard one day with a little bit of upside. He's not ready right now. He needs at least 2 years to get ready. He just does. There's a ton of immaturity in his game. He's got to grow into himself a ton. He's very, very young. I just think there were win now players, right? I don't understand why we need like a developmental piece on the team right now when there were other good players that could help you win basketball games right now, and you needed some wings, and some wings were available. I think that's an F pick. I do. Like, I'm not saying that he can't be a good player one day. It's just that's not what the team needed right now. Like he's not helping you this first year. If he does, like I'll happily shut the fuck up and like be like, okay, my bad, right? But like I think there were more obvious options and positions that you needed more. Keyshawn George up next, another Wizards pick. The Wizards hit every single like position they really needed. They got a center, they got a wing, and they got a point guard. Kind of cool, right? The Wizards don't have like a ton of ball handling going on in the team right now, and so I think it made sense to them to add another guy that could potentially handle the ball. I think he kind of falls into that Jalen Tyson category, though, where it's like a lot of those moves that people were saying, oh yeah, he can go create for himself. They're more so like college moves. They're not really that complicated or in depth, in all honesty, but he can shoot the ball. He was able to do it off the dribble or with the basketball, and just his ability to like get to the hoop on its own, I think is interesting enough for a pick right here. So I'm gonna give this one like a B. I don't hate that one at all. You add a little bit of floor spacing. Like, see, that is the right way that you try to build around these guys that you just picked, though, right? It's like, okay, you went and got a center, you went and got a point guard. It's like, okay, let's go give him some space to operate now, and another guy to keep the offense going. Like, there you go, Wizards fans. Like, still would have rather just kept Denny, but you know what? You're doing what you're doing now. You already moved him, so you can only do what you can do from there. Next up, we got Pacome Daddier. I'm probably saying it wrong, but you guys know me at this point. I can't read. But no, we've been high on Daddier for a while, going like months back and everything, when he was still kind of like a projected like late second round pick and everything. I've always really liked his game. I think that there's a lot of room to grow. It's going to take some time for sure, but the Knicks are in a situation where they can afford to do that, right? Like, they can get him in. There's plenty of other guys at his position that are going to be able to teach him. Thibs is a good developmental coach, so I feel really good about that. You see him being able to hit outside shots. You see him being able to put the ball on the floor. The defense is a little bit questionable right now, but I don't think it's from a lack of intelligence. I think it's just more so he's just figuring it out more so. So I really think in a couple of years you could see Daddier become something for you, or if not, be an interesting piece to include in a trade to go get something else. So I'm gonna give that one a B. I like that pick. All right, Dillon Jones crept his way up into the first round. Not something that I saw coming. I saw more of a mid-second round pick. And this is, again, the Thunder being weird. Thunder being really weird with this one. Undersized, like, forward, we'll call him, because he's strong as all shit. I'll give him 6'4", like 240, probably is what he measures in at. Gets to the rack well. Likes to have the ball in his hands, doesn't do much outside of the arc or anything like that, but can pass when he gets down low. So, again, fits that Thunder system and everything. But that's an incredible reach for Dillon Jones, in all honesty. I don't understand that pick much at all. I don't know why you moved up to do it. Again, this felt like the Thunder kind of doing something that just didn't need to be done, in all honesty, for a position that, in a style of player that just wasn't really needed. I'm going to give that one an F, and I'm scared to give it an F because the Thunder are usually pretty smart, so I'll be prepared to be wrong. Terrence Shannon Jr., we're just going to move it right up there. The Minnesota Timberwolves got him at the end of the draft. For those of you guys that have been following, I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is one of the best players in this class. Obviously, the off-the-court stuff took him down a little bit, but Terrence Shannon Jr. should be able to come in and get you buckets, like, right away, and just be a good NBA player, like, right away. Nothing really that he can't do. He can pass, he can defend, he can shoot, and here's the coolest thing about him. When young guys, like, come into either, like, college or the NBA, a lot of times we talk about things like counter moves and stuff, because when you're in high school, you have to do like one thing and you get open, right? And then all of a sudden they get to college and they're like, wait, I'm not open anymore. Wait, I know I need to like read the defense and like counter what they're doing then, and the chess match begins. The cool thing about Terrence Shannon is like he's already a grown-ass man. He's ready to contribute right away, and he's got like 7-8 counter moves that I've like counted in like different situations and stuff for him to go to. He's just a bucket getter, and he can hit from outside. He can do it all with the ball. The Timberwolves needed more shot creators. They got one. Like, Terrence Shannon Jr. could very well find his way onto the court very, very early for Minnesota with a pick like this, and he's a good defender. Like, he's a good athlete, and here's what I've always said. If you just put dogs around Anthony Edwards, good things will happen. This guy's a dog. Like, this guy's got energy. He plays hard and everything. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal pick. Shout out Minnesota, man. I think y'all did well today. I'm totally just realizing now, who the hell did I put like here? That is not Rob Dillingham. Oh, I know I got the comments. Just calm down, all right? Like, this is why you got to watch the whole video. I can't wait to timestamp a couple of you idiots. I can't wait. But anyway, let's talk about Ryan Dunn really quick. Going out to Phoenix, I really like that pick for them. Like, Phoenix was able to move back in the draft, get a little bit more draft capital and stuff like that, and they still got a guy that's going to be able to come in and like really help them out right away. Doesn't need the ball to be successful. He's not going to be a great option right away, but he's probably the best on-ball defender that we have in this class. Should be able to come in, help them out on the defensive end, be a good cutter when all these other guys draw their double teams and stuff. Should get some easy buckets from that right away. Just a smart basketball player. I'm gonna give that pick an A. I think that was a really good pick for Phoenix, especially in the way that they went to go get it. Next up, we got Isaiah Collier, who at one point people thought might be the number one pick, fell very far, and I think for good reason. Personally, I'm just not that high on him. As I've told people before, I'm like, you couldn't figure out the college game like even close. I don't know how you're going to do it at the NBA level as a point guard. I just don't. Like, I'm sorry, that's just what I see. But obviously, he's an interesting physical prospect and everything. He does have some potential in that sense. And the Utah already having a first round pick, and they're like, okay, like we might as well take a swing on the upside of this guy. Can't fault him for that at all. It's not like the point guard position is locked down for them. So for that reason, I'll give him a C, because I think it's probably a good, like I said, just swing. But I don't really care for him much as a prospect or anything. Sure, he's a nice guy at the end of the day, but that's where I'll put Collier. And let's just finish off with Baylor Shireman. I think that was a nice pick at the end of the day. Not going to be a great impact guy necessarily, like instantly for like Boston. He's not probably going to be in the rotation right away, but who knows? Maybe he will, just because he is solid at everything. Like, we know he's a good shooter. Need more shooters on the team at all times in Boston. That's awesome. You can get this guy for 4 years now. But he can also put the ball on the floor a little bit. He's a solid defender. He's a nice rebounder. So I really, really like Baylor Shireman. I'm glad he went in the first round. I really, really like that for them. But yeah, that was your first round draft grades and everything. You guys let me know what you think. Honestly, looks like some good picks, like overall towards the top. So a couple of mid ones, a couple ones that I don't like quite as much, but I want to hear your guys' grades and everything. Make sure you guys, like, again, follow my rules in the comments and everything. Try to be respectful. Let's not just throw brain rot out there on the internet. There's so much of that. Like, I just can't even scroll on Twitter without seeing a butthole and a stupid comment at the end of the day. But no, appreciate you guys as always. I'm going to go to bed because it is really late at this point, and I would just like to go to bed. And so, because I've still got a lot of editing and stuff to do. But no, seriously, thank you guys as always, and be on the lookout for some second round coverage today at the time that you guys are seeing this. Thanks so much. Bye.